Welcome to the Portland Culinary Podcast on Portland Culinary Radio. I'm Stephen Schauma, your host. Joining me today is Carrie Wynkoop, the founder of Cellar 503. How are you doing, Carrie?
I'm great, thanks.
Okay, right off the bat, for those that don't know, what is Cellar 503?
Cellar 503 is a wine club, similar to a winery wine club, but instead of sending our members wines from just one winery, we send them wines from small producers all over the state.
Perfect answer. I love it. It's like you actually know.
We do.
Okay, we'll talk more about Cellar 503 in a second. But standard questions we always ask on all my podcasts. Where were you born?
Olympia, Washington.
Where at?
St. Peter's Hospital.
Yes, I got kids myself that were born there. That's awesome.
Awesome.
Okay, and where'd you go to high school?
Tumwater High School.
And the mascot there?
The Thunderbirds.
Oh, yeah. So every year, I think I don't know if they still do it, but at least back in the day, they played the Olympia Bears.
I'm sure they do.
Okay. And then what happened after high school?
I moved down here to Portland to go to Lewis and Clark College. And you know what? The minute I stepped on that campus, I knew that I would never leave Portland.
It's a beautiful campus.
It's a beautiful campus, and it just really started my love for all things Oregon.
And so, so Portland's home.
Portland's home.
And really and we'll talk about it, because of your travels and the mileage you put in your car, I think actually, your backyard is all of Oregon.
Absolutely. I travel as much as I possibly can meeting with winemakers.
Okay, so where did your wine journey begin?
Funny enough, my wine journey began when I'm not sure I was even 21 yet. I was selling wine at Cost Plus World Market out in Tigard.
And did you fall in love with wine?
I did. I fell in love with wine. I was able to try lots of different things, and I really enjoyed being able to help people find that perfect bottle of wine for whatever occasion that they were celebrating.
Okay, so you just got captivated by it.
I did. I got really interested in all of the different varietals. I mean, there's just a million different kinds of wine out there, and what makes them unique and different, even when they are always just a bottle full of grape juice.
Yeah, and like one of my, currently I'm on a Tempranillo kick. So we have roughly 40 Tempranillo winemakers here in Oregon. Mm-hmm. And same grape, you can get a totally different wine. Just depends not only on where the Tempranillo is grown, and there we grow Tempranillo a lot of places here, but also the winemaker.
Absolutely.
And that's the fun thing about wine. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay.
How different it is.
So did you find yourself then going to a lot of wine events and to tastings?
Yeah, absolutely. A few years ago, I had a friend who stopped me and said, you taste a lot of wine. And I was like, uh-oh, what does that mean? And she said, no, I just see that you spend a lot of your free time on weekends and on vacations visiting different wineries. And I said, yeah, absolutely. We love going on vacations and seeking out the little tiny guys. And she said, you should think about taking some wine education classes. I thought that was a great idea.
And did you?
I did. I took classes at the Wine and Spirit Archive with Mimi, who is a fabulous teacher here in Portland, and I got a WSET certification. And about halfway through that class, I knew that I wanted to somehow work in the wine industry.
Okay, that's it. And you're like, hey, this is it. This is going to be my next career.
It is, but it took me a long time to figure out exactly what that was going to be. I had a young son. My husband and I own another business. I wasn't going to do the restaurant thing. I didn't know enough to make wine. I wasn't going to be a farmer, and sales didn't really seem like the right fit either. And so we were on vacation once, and I said to my husband, oh my gosh, I just want someone to send me wine from small guys across the state so that I don't have to do the work of finding out where they are. They'll just come to my door. And he said, well, there you go. There's your business idea.
I love it. So roughly how long is the time gap between your wine education classes and that you opening Cellar 503?
It was about 6 or 8 months. I think we kind of came up with the idea, and I thought he was crazy for a good long while, and then Cellar 503 opened in December of 2014.
December 2014.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Okay, that's a fantastic story. I love it. Okay, so what were you doing at the time you opened, professionally, at the time you opened Cellar 503?
So my husband and I do own another business, a marketing, internet strategy, consulting business, and Cellar 503 was really sort of the culmination of our love of Oregon, my passion for wine, and our experience in digital marketing.
Okay, so you said Cellar 503 is a wine club.
It is.
So that means that I sign up and wine comes to my door.
Absolutely.
Anywhere in Oregon?
Yes, actually, we ship all over the country as well. We've got members in 28 different states. People can choose a monthly or a quarterly option. They can choose 2 bottles or 4 bottles, and they can choose red only, white only, or mixed. So you really can kind of create whatever club works best for you.
Okay, let me see if I got this right. So I can get monthly, every month I can get a magical box at my door. Mm-hmm. Just about all over the country, I bet you can ship just about anywhere.
Yep.
So I can have a box a month show up
Yep.
with either 2 bottles or 4 bottles, or I can get once a quarter.
Exactly.
I can get 2 bottles or 4 bottles. I think that's fantastic.
And for those people in the Portland area, you can come to the tasting events that we have at our tasting room every month on the third Sunday and the third Wednesday and pick up your wines here and get to meet some of our featured winemakers.
Okay, so that's the thing that people have sometimes I found have a hard time getting their head around it. This is not, we're here in the Cellar 503 tasting room space right now recording this podcast episode, and this is not a wine shop. There's not like 500 different bottles.
Right.
This is
right.
just a cool space with some amazing drawings and a place to hang out and drink some wine.
Absolutely.
It's a whole different approach.
It is. We are not a retail establishment. We are really focused on finding great wines from small producers every month and getting them out to our members, whether it's at our events or shipping them. And so we don't have a ton of wine here on hand. In fact, we're not open to the public except for special events. And that really helps us focus on getting those shipments every month really right and being able to tell the stories of these small producers.
Okay, so who curates all this wine that gets shipped out every month out of here?
I do. Every bottle.
And you are eminently qualified to do so, if I do say so myself.
Thank you.
Okay, so one of the things I love is that you have a theme every month or every quarter. There's a theme. Well, it's a theme every month. So if I get quarterly, I get the theme of that month. So let's talk about April. We're about to drink 2 amazing wines. So tell me the theme for April.
Yeah, these are wines that we are featuring here this month in April. And I like to have a theme because it just sort of helps hang the shipment together, whether it's a holiday or a winemaking technique or a particular part of Oregon. And so this month, because it's April and we're celebrating Earth Day, all the wines that we are featuring this month are environmentally thoughtful or environmentally conscious. So the folks are making them in a very natural way with very little to no additives, and they're focusing on using organic or biodynamic grapes. So they're really thinking about the impact of their wine on the environment around them.
You know, I just want to know the theme every month. I bet that has so much. Creating like that is a lot of work. So hats off to you for doing that creativity work.
Thank you.
But I know from
Super fun.
being creative, it's work, but it's also how fulfilling and how fun to think about what are we going to do for November? What are we going to do for February? I bet that's kind of energizing at the same time daunting.
It is. And we have a couple themes every year that we do every year. In May, we do women winemakers for Mother's Day.
Nice.
And our other really popular one is in September, we do a back to school theme where we have 4 unusual varietals. So grapes that you probably haven't heard of before and have never tried. And our members love it because they really get to try some obscure stuff.
Okay, right then. So I got to tell me some obscure varietals that are grown here in Oregon that people may not know of.
Yes. So there's one called Zweigelt.
Zweigelt,
which is an Austrian grape, as you could assume from the name. It's out in the Columbia Gorge. There's another one called Huxelrebe, which is also, pretty obscure. And actually, one of the 2 wines that we have in front of us, the red wine, is a Pinot Meunier.
A Pinot Meunier. Now that I've never heard of a Pinot Meunier.
Yes.
That sounds fantastic.
And you actually probably have had it before if you've had any kind of champagne, because it is the 3rd grape found in Champagne, along with Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. They're sort of the magical trio that makes up especially French champagne. But it's pretty unusual to find it by itself. What little there is grown here in Oregon is usually used by some of the big sparkling houses. But James Ron of James Ron Wine Company got his hands on a little bit of it and made this stunning wine with it.
Okay, speaking of obscure varietals, one of the ones I love, I've only had it 3 different times, and I bought bottles every time because it blew my mind. Baco Noir,
Yes.
have you ever featured that?
I have. Girardet, which is down in Roseburg. is
A lot of amazing wineries in Roseburg.
Absolutely.
I mean, all over the state, but I just have fallen in love with some of the people down there.
Yeah,
So.
it's a beautiful place to visit. And the folks at Girardet are actually the first people to ever bring Baco Noir to the West Coast. So they got a little bit of it from New York back in the 60s, and they planted it here in Oregon, and now it has spread to Washington and California.
Yeah, fun little, it's fun to talk about obscure varietals, but that's one. You mentioned a couple others whose names I will not remember till I listen to the podcast again, but I get to drink one. So Pinot Meunier?
Yes, Pinot Meunier.
I can't believe I got it right.
Good
Okay,
job.
so for those that don't know, since you're, in my opinion, this is my words, not yours. You are an expert of all things Oregon wine.
Thank you.
You put the miles on the car to prove it.
Absolutely.
Roughly how many wineries do we have in Oregon?
We're closing in on 800 wineries here in Oregon, and when I started just 4 years ago, there were only about 400, so we have grown immensely.
And I think it's your job to visit all 800 2 or 3 times a year.
Yeah, I try as best I can.
So I think we have wineries almost in all parts of the state.
Yep, basically just the small little southeastern corner of the state, sort of by the Steen Mountains. That's basically the only place in the state where there isn't a winery or grapes being grown.
But we do have grapes in Eastern Oregon.
Absolutely.
Klamath Falls, there's wineries.
Yep, lots of them.
Okay, Oregon Coast.
There are a couple wineries out there on the Oregon coast. Definitely a tougher area to grow grapes because of the weather, but there's a couple actually making wine out there.
Nice. Okay. And then, of course, we know we've got them here in Portland. People don't realize. Some people don't realize, believe it or not. I mean, wine fans know Portland urban wine is amazing.
Is amazing.
But we have it.
15 wineries in Portland.
That's incredible. And, of course, we've got the Willamette Valley just down here and Carlton and all that.
Absolutely.
Columbia Gorge. I love all those people out there.
Yeah, going out to Hood River is just the most glorious day of wine tasting.
Yeah, and then we did an episode talking about Port Oregon, which is a wine festival you put together, which is annually happens the last Sunday in April. So whenever you listen to this podcast, make sure you go to Port Oregon. But a fun experience I had at the first ever Port Oregon was you put that festival by different geographies, and I got to meet all these incredible winemakers for Southern Oregon. Like, okay, that's it. I'm taking it to Southern Oregon.
Absolutely. We want people to really have a great opportunity to meet these small producers from different parts of the state, hopefully plan some travel to go see them, and really understand the huge variety of wine that we make here in Oregon.
Yeah, so we got great wine grown all over the whole state, and that's the thing I love about what we do at Cellar 503 is you kind of feature the whole state. How often are you out in the field?
I'm out as often as I can. I definitely spend a good chunk of time down in Southern Oregon every summer and meeting with winemakers and enjoying the beautiful surroundings down in Ashland. I usually spend at least a week down there. I'll spend, good 3 or 4 days in the Roseburg area. Fortunately, the Willamette Valley is not far from us, so I get down there every month.
Yep.
And usually take a weekend out in Eastern Oregon as well. So I meet every winemaker. I visit every winery. I really pride myself on my relationships with the wineries, and I just love being able to tell their stories.
So if I'm a Cellar 503 member and I get the box once a month, you've been to the winery, you've checked out the winemaker, the winery, the facility, tasting them or not, you've gone down there and checked them out.
Absolutely. And then included with every shipment is a card that really tells the story of the people behind the wine, why they got into this, what's unique about the wine, as well as some tasting notes to help you enjoy that particular bottle.
Okay, and about how many, we talked about a number of wineries, roughly how many varietals are grown here in Oregon?
I think it's over 60 different varietals grown here in Oregon, and we have featured 48 of them in the club over the last 4 years.
Both of those numbers are astonishing.
Right?
It's so cool that Oregon is so diverse that we can grow that many varieties, and the fact that you featured it, you really do celebrate the whole breadth and width of Oregon wine.
Absolutely. We love our Pinot Noir here in Oregon, but I want people to understand that there's more to Oregon than just Pinot Noir.
Okay, so you don't let not every winemaker can come into the club. You have a cutoff. What's the cutoff?
We work with people who make less than 10,000 cases a year.
That's still a lot of
That's still a lot of people. It's, probably 85 or 90% of the wineries in the state.
Okay, so why the cutoff?
There's great wineries who are making more than 10,000 cases a year, for sure, and they have great quality, but they also have great reach with their own marketing efforts. And the little guys are really where my passion is, telling their story and helping get the word out about them, because this is a business that is challenging, especially if you don't have access to distribution or you don't have great marketing chops on your own. And so being able to help these folks get out, meet people, meet some of my members and sell their wines and really be able to tell their stories and the broader story of Oregon wine is how I got into this.
And I know you have a marketing background.
Yes.
And so the way I teach an 11-word marketing and branding seminar.
Nice.
Your brand is your story, and marketing is tastefully telling their story. And I have run into an ache that I think you've run into for cheesemakers and for some wineries. Cheesemakers really are just farmers.
So are wine growers.
Right.
Yep.
And sometimes their whole marketing side, their storytelling, the stuff is amazing, but it's like, would you just get a Facebook page or come on, figure out, And so for you to be able to run into the amazing wines and then help them tell their story.
Exactly.
I'm sure that's incredibly fulfilling for you because of your marketing background. People don't do marketing who don't love stories. But then you introduce them to the world, and then you help them. They need to take the little card that you give them and memorize it, and then put that on their website and put that on their Facebook page.
Exactly. I mean, the small winery that really inspired me is La Brasseur Vineyard down way in the middle of nowhere outside of Medford. And it was opened up by a retired firefighter who literally planted his own grapes, taught himself how to make wine, built his own winery, did it all himself, and no one would ever find him because he was so off the beaten path. And yet his wines were stunning. And I really wanted to be able to share his story and share his wine.
That's what I love about what you do, because I love stories. And, great, okay, fine, this is amazing wine or amazing chocolate or amazing, spirits. But who made it and what was the passion? You could taste the passion in the glass.
Exactly.
And you not only give me the amazing wine, but then I get the story with it.
Exactly. It's the best part of my job.
I love it. Okay, so we're going to taste two of the wines. You mentioned this is April. So we're going to taste two of the wines that are featured in this year's, or this month's shipment. So tell me about this first one.
So this first one is actually an unusual varietal as well. So this is a Gruner Veltliner, which is
Gruner Veltliner.
There you go. From Minimus Wines. They have a tasting room down in the Carlton area. Chad Stock is the winemaker, and he is really known for his experimental ways. He loves the unusual varietals, and he loves to make little tiny lots of different wines and really be able to showcase the fruit. And he is a natural winemaker, so there's no additives, there's no fining or filtering on any of his wines. So Gruner Veltliner is, as you can imagine from the name, a German varietal that's very herbaceous, a little bit of pepper on this, a little bit of white pepper, some floral notes to it, but is a crisp, dry white wine. This one, because it was apparently aged in Austrian oak, which is pretty unusual, has a little bit more body and a little bit more texture to it that makes it a really interesting and characterful kind of white wine.
Yeah, you take a sip and you're like, okay, that's really smooth, and then all the flavors just start to open up, and it's just it's very complex.
It is really complex, and this would be amazing with seafood. I think would be awesome. I think it would be great to experiment with this with different kinds of cheeses, hard cheese, or some things that would really maybe have a little bit of floralness to them that might complement the wine and kind of bring out that character in the wine. Would be really interesting.
Yeah, and I bet, I think there's a little bit of spicy food. My girlfriend loves spice. I don't. She likes to sweat when she eats. I'm a wimp. I can't do that. But just the richness of this would lend itself to a little bit of heat and a little bit of spice.
Yep, and there's a nice acid base to it too that would cut through some of the richness of richer foods.
I love it. Okay, and so do they have Minimus Wines? Do they have a tasting room?
They do down in Carlton. They are part of the Craft Wine Company. A couple different lines of wines, and you can stop by and taste their wines down there.
All right, and then tell me again about the winemaker.
Chad Stock is the winemaker, and he is one of the most experimental winemakers in the valley. He loves playing with really tiny lots of unusual grapes and really bringing out their best character before he brings them out to the public, and people just eat them up.
It just sounds like reminds me of Ale Apothecary. They're a brewery in Bend where he's just. I just tell people he's BS crazy. But his stuff is amazing. It's phenomenal. Similar, kind of just experimental. And okay, and then so we had a white. Now we're going to have a red.
Yeah, so this is the Pinot Meunier that I mentioned earlier.
Pinot Meunier
From James Ron Wine Company. They're an urban winemaker here in Portland. They make their wines at Southeast Wine Collective.
Wonderful people out there at Southeast Wine Collective.
It's such a great space for young, up-and-coming new winemakers. As I mentioned, Pinot Meunier, it's really unusual to find a single varietal bottling of this here in Oregon. What is grown here in Oregon is usually blended in with Pinot Noir and Chardonnay to make sparkling wine. That's one of the reasons why this wine is so special. People can compare the Pinot Meunier to Pinot Noir, but I find that this is fruitier, has more character to it. It's definitely very tart and got that red berries, but there's a lot more depth of flavor to this. This isn't like your traditional Pinot Noir with that really dusty, earthy flavor. You're getting a lot of red berry flavors out of this wine, but it's still got that nice tart crispness to it that makes it a great food wine.
Yeah, it is. It's tart, but it's not too tart.
Mm-hmm.
And crisp is the perfect word. Okay, so what? Any food suggestions with this?
I think you could do, it's kind of a nice balance where you could still have this with a roast chicken, but you could also do it with a steak, like especially a sliced up, marinated kind of steak could go really well with this as well. So I think it's one of those super food friendly wines because it's got nice acid to it that it's going to pair well with a lot of different things.
No, I want to put some chicken on the grill and then a little bit of vegetables on the grill, a little bit of olive oil. I think
Little rosemary, that'd be beautiful with this.
Yes, exactly. Rosemary, there you go. That's nice.
It's got a nice herbal undertones to it that would pair well with that.
Okay, so for the people that have signed up for the Cellar 5, they get these bottles, they'll get these.
They'll get those. Yep.
Oh my
Yep.
gosh!
I'm sending them out tomorrow, so literally they will get these bottles.
And I know I didn't even know Pinot Meunier was such an elegant name. I didn't even know it was a thing. Okay, and what was the other one we had?
Gruner Veltliner.
Gruner Veltliner. That's why people need to sign up for the Cellar 503 Wine Club. Is they're just if they love wine, they're going to get to find out about wine, about winemakers.
Exactly. You get to really expand your palate and try some new things. I tell everybody that I hope you will try every single bottle. I know that you may not love every single bottle, but you'll at least have an experience with it. And it'll help you try new things, and you might discover, oh my gosh, I love Gruner Veltliner, and the next time I'm at a restaurant, I'm going to get that one because I actually know what it is and what it tastes like and that it's going to go really well with this food. It's just a fun way to be able to try lots of different things from lots of different small places.
This is not how I roll, but I'm so tempted to be like a wine snob. Do you have any Pinot Meunier?
Absolutely. They would be very impressed. They would be very impressed.
Well, Carrie, I love what you do here at Cellar 503.
Thank you.
I'm excited for this podcast to come out. And if people love Oregon wine, wherever they are across the country, I think they should sign up for your wine club because it's beautiful wine. It's beautiful storytelling, and you're helping that small producer. That's where my heart goes. A small food court owner, a small chocolatier, a small winemaker. They're all doing it for the love of what they do.
Absolutely.
And being able to support them and cheer them on is a beautiful thing.
It's a great part of my job. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us on the Portland Culinary Podcast. Cheers.